I've really found Proverbs to be challenging on the study aspect of it. I'm used to digging in and finding all kinds of nuggets and trying to bring those nuggets out and explaining how the story is going on and cultural things and things like that. But Proverbs is just so different because it's got a verse here that's dealing with this and then a verse that's dealing with this. And so it's been a challenge, but I've loved it. I've loved going through it. I've loved teaching it. Hopefully you are responding to the things that Solomon is teaching us. And we're going to look at what I've entitled The Uncertainty of Folly. The uncertainty of folly. In other words, foolishness, there's nothing certain about foolishness. But living for Christ, there is something that comes with it that is sustaining, and there is something certain about it. And so I pray that one of these verses will just change the way you and I live. I know we're going to be looking at all kinds of verses, 28 different verses we're going to be looking at. We're going to be breaking them up one by one. We're going to tell you what those verses mean. And I'm praying that one verse will just stand out to you. One verse that stood out to me is really verse number 14. We're going to get into that in a little while. I'll just read it. It says, "The beginning of strife is as when one letteth out water. Therefore leave off contention before it be meddled with." Very interesting, and I find it interesting just because of what's going on in that text. And I want to draw that out to you tonight, but I found that to be interesting. Also, verse 3 is a good one that we're going to be looking at. I've got all kinds of. Verse 4 is something that is needed in the church. Verse 11 through 13 is good. All of them are good, but we're going to just take time and go through each verse. And I hope that you can gain one verse and say, okay, I'm applying that verse to my life, how I can be a different kind of Christian. Verse number 1 in Proverbs chapter 17. Proverbs 17. I hope you have your Bible. I hope that you are following along in the Word of God. I know some of you may have it on a tablet or a phone. That's okay, but follow along in the Word of God. "Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifices with strife." How many of you like to eat dry food? Like you go to the restaurant and you say, "Cook it until it's dry." Anybody ever go to the restaurant? Do that. So I used to eat a steak well done. My dad used to kid me about it. I was under the mentality that I didn't want my cow still mooing when I cut into it. Now there are some people, it's like medium rare, where I think he's still got a heartbeat or something going through there. I can't do my meat like that, but I have expanded my horizons from well done to medium, at least medium well. There can be a little bit pink in it, but like I said, I don't want it mooing. But I don't want it dry. A lot of times when you tell them well done, what do? They bring you a charcoal biscuit. Is what they do. Is a piece of charcoal, and you're like, how in the world am I going to choose? Nobody in here likes dry food. It's very unpleasant to our taste buds. It's very unpleasant to our mouths. We don't like that. But it's better to have dry food in a house where there is peace. Now, this is not the Bible verse is not talking about husbands or wives who are bad cooks, okay? So don't use this verse going home and say, "Listen, I'm glad we're at peace with one another, but couldn't you add some moisture to your food a little bit?" Don't do that one. I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that one. But what it has to mean, what it has to go with, what it's saying is peace and contentment, especially domestic peace, are beyond all other blessings. He said, "Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifices with strife." A house that has all the food and has all the things it wants, but in that house there is strife. And just because they're doing sacrifices and looking religious doesn't mean that everything's good inside the house. Let me just tell you this. On Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on TikTok, whatever social media you want to be a part of, everybody only puts the good out there. They don't put the bad out there. Oftentimes we look at this stuff and we're like, wow, they've got a good life. But you don't know the strife that's going in their life. You don't know what they're going through on a daily basis that they don't put on social media. So sometimes it's better just to have dry food and peace and quiet, right? So husbands, if you cook that chicken too dry but there's peace in the house, everything's good. Wives, if you cook that meatloaf way too long and it's just dry now, it's okay. Tell your husband it's okay. We have peace in the house, right? Wives and husbands, y'all can get along now. You can say, okay, well, it's better just to love one another and have dry food, I guess, than to have all the luxuries and us be fighting all the time. Peace and contentment, especially domestic peace, are beyond all other blessings. How many of y'all would agree with that? It's good to have peace in the home, right? It's good to be at peace with one another. That makes a healthy house. Verse 2, a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causes shame, and shall have part in inheritance among the brethren. What's this saying? Saying a dependable servant is better than a misbehaving servant. If there's a son in line to rule and take over what his dad has established, but the servant is more dependable, more reliable, more often they could probably give that to the servant instead of son, because the servant is better off. He's not causing shame, but there's a son that causes shame. And so the servant is going to have a part of the inheritance among the brethren. He's going to be named one of the sons, really. And I find that interesting. Verse 3, how many of you have ever asked the question, why is this happening to me? Anybody want to admit that you've asked that question? I think we all have. Why is this happening to me? I think it's something that we've all asked. I'm going to give you the answer right now, why this is happening to you. And I don't know your specific circumstance, but we know things happen to us for various reasons, so this could be one of them. Verse 3, the finding pot is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the what? He trieth the hearts. So why am I going through what I'm going through? Well, the finding pot is to silver like trials and tribulation are to the human life. The reason you and I would put gold and silver in a refining pot is to take out all the impurities, to heat it up from beneath, and all the impurities will rise to the top. One that deals in silver will know, hey, I've got to take off the dross. Every time you heat it up, more dross is coming up, more dross is coming up. And the refiner will keep doing this, and he will keep removing the dross over and over and over again until he's able to look down and see a clear reflection in the molten metal. He will make sure that it is free of all impurities. So what is Jesus doing? What does Solomon say that we go through with trials? Well, the finding pot is for silver and the furnace for gold. We bring the impurities out. We heat it up so that the refiner can look down. Well, Jesus tries our hearts. He's allowing trials and tribulations to come in. And what Jesus is doing is allowing heat to come up to remove the dross, to get rid of things in our life. And then he scoops away the dross. Now, how long is God going to do that? God's going to continue doing that. That's the process of sanctification, which is a process that is never going to end until we get to heaven. Bummer, right? So God's going to continually turn up the heat, and he's going to get things out of our lives until God can look down in our life and see himself. Everybody get that picture? The question I have for you is this. Does Jesus see his reflection in you? Or does he still see the impurities that are coming up? And like I said this morning, we're not perfect. God does not expect us to be perfect. He wants us to sin as less as we can. He knows that we're going to fall. He makes a way of forgiveness. But does Jesus see his reflection in you tonight? Why is this happening to me? Well, it could be happening to you because you've sinned a sin. And this is your punishment. This is what God is bringing into your life as a consequence. You could be facing this just because God is trying to make you more like him. And so don't get mad when things happen. Be understanding that God is trying my heart for my good and his glory. Verse number 4, A wicked doer giveth heed to false lips, and a liar giveth ear to a naughty tongue. Evil lips not only spread lies when they hear them, but they're also guilty of retrieving them. Last Sunday night we talked about one that likes to go and dig up stuff on other people. Y'all remember that? That kind of person, I guess, just drives me crazy. Because if you look long enough in every single one of our lives, you're going to find, if you dig hard enough, you're going to find something that somebody don't like, right? But this person who's evil, man, Solomon says, a wicked doer giveth heed to false lips. In other words, a wicked person is going to listen to lies. All right? Listen to lies. You know when someone's telling you a lie, and you got a choice now. Do I believe that, or I just say, you know what? That guy is full of it. He is not telling me the truth. Those who are guilty of spreading lies, you know what they're guilty also of doing? Going and getting lies. So they're listening for the next gossip, right? And that's what I think churches get a bad name from. Does churches have gossipers in them? Yes or no? Absolutely. Should churches have gossipers in them? No, it shouldn't, but we do. We have gossipers. We have people who want to get on the phone or social media and they want to hear the latest gossip. And then what will they do with the latest gossip that they will get? They will be burning lips, as he says in chapter 16. They're burning lips. Now, the question I have for you is this. Do you find yourself wanting the latest scoop on someone else's life? You see, that's a life of foolishness, and that'll bring you to a place of uncertainty. Do you find yourself spreading lies that someone has told you? Now, let's just all be guilty, and let's just all be honest, because we're guilty in this. We've all probably shared a lie that somebody's told us. At some point in our life, we've been guilty of sharing a lie that somebody has told us. All right? But don't be that kind of person. Verse 5, whoso mocketh the poor reproacheth his maker. He that is glad at calamity shall not be unpunished. You know, the poor, they seem to be an easy target for people to mock and to make fun of. Humans tend to be creatures who thrive on being better than someone else. We look at ourselves and we want to be better than somebody else. That's our nature, right? We don't want somebody else to get praise that I could get, right? Or you could get. When somebody is maybe they look better than us, they act better than us, they got all these things, it seems, on the outside, and that all their qualities are better than us, we look at ourselves and we're like, well, I need to be better than them. I need to be better than them. And Solomon's saying, listen, those who are poor, we don't need to mock. You know, they're far less fortunate than we are, but that's no reason to mock them. We're not better than anybody else. The reason we struggle with this is because we're all full of pride. That is the root of evil. Pride, selfishness, thinking about myself higher than I should. It's easy to mock others who are not in the same category as you are. It's easy to put them down. It's easy to do that. Why? Because it makes us feel good about who we are and what we've accomplished, right? Look at what I've done. And so mocking the poor and laughing at calamities shall not be unpunished. Verse 6, how many of you love your grandchildren? If you got them. All right, if you don't, if you got them and you don't love them, then we something's wrong here, right? So I was talking to my dad the other day. You know, I also videoed my mom and dad, just a kind of a story of their life. I wanted to kind of get their testimony, when they got saved, when they got married, how did they meet, and things like that. I asked my dad, I said, is it better to be a parent or a grandparent? And he said, well, they're different. He said, you love your grandchildren in a different way. I said, what would you rather be, a parent or a grandparent? He said, a parent, which surprised me because I would have thought he would have said, grandparents hand down because I don't have to deal with them. Right? They come over to my house, I feed them sugar, do whatever I need to do, and send them back on home. But he said, I'd rather be a parent because I guess there's that special connection to that child that you and your spouse brought into the world. And so grandchildren, our verse says in number 6, children's children, that's grandchildren, are the crown of old men. All right, it's something for men to brag about. Old men and even older ladies. Listen, I've never been around anybody who has a grandchild who was not willing to show you a picture of that grandchild. Right? Let me show you what so-and-so is doing. All right, take Anthony this morning. He's the proudest papa I've ever seen in my life. He comes in right before Sunday school, and he comes in and he says, "Where's everybody at?" I said, "Well, they're probably in Sunday school." So he decides, I'm going to go over and interrupt Sunday school and show everybody my baby. Now, do you blame him? I mean, why? The verse is going to tell us why this happened. Listen to this. And the glory of children are their fathers. So grandchildren are like a crown of glory for the grandparent. And then children are like glory to the father. Now, so when you see your child mimic you, you know, children, they're pretty good imitators, right? Some of them annoyingly so, right? Like they do everything that you do, and you're like, "Stop doing that. Stop copying me." Well, that they're supposed to. They're copying you. And that child mimics an action that you do, or perhaps he says something or she says something to somebody that you didn't want them to say. Has that ever happened to anybody? Like children just like blurt out the truth, and you're like, "What he meant to say," and you gotta kind of defend this kid. Well, your child is just mimicking what you've said at the house, right? So we got to be careful how we're living in front of our kids, because fathers are glory to their children. And so, in order for a father to be to have glory in his children, the father needs to be living or parenting in a way that would cause our children to glory in us. All right, we need to be living in such a manner where they're saying, "You know what? I know my mom, I know my dad love me and will do anything for me." Verse 7, "Excellent speech becometh not a fool, much less do lying lips a prince." What this is saying is those in leadership should not be known for spreading lies, because God has set up that leadership. He's saying that speech that is wise coming from the lips of a fool seems almost like an oxymoron. All right, someone who is obviously foolish in their life, but they're trying to speak wise things. It's just like that doesn't register in your brain. A prince or leader should not be known for the lies they tell, but by being men and women of truth. I'm just going to do a test with you tonight. Just a test. This is a test, okay? Tell me what comes to your mind. What one word comes to your mind when I say the word politician? Go ahead, speak it out. Right? Liar. Right? That's what isn't that sad? That's sad that our leaders of this country are known for not spreading wisdom or spreading wise things, that they're known for spreading lies. Solomon says this should not be so. Excellent speech becometh not a fool. A foolish person does not speak wise things. And a prince who is supposed to be wise does not speak foolish things. But obviously we see the opposite of that in our world today. Verse number 8, "A gift is as precious as a precious stone in the eyes of him that hath it. Whithersoever that turneth, it prospereth." A gift presented as a token of pure affection and respect will be highly valued by its possessor. Do y'all have maybe an heirloom or something that was given to you that you absolutely treasure because it was a gift given to you from somebody? I think we all could probably have something like that in our life. It paves the way for a deeper relationship. He who will find love should be a giver, not just a receiver. I love what happens in 1 Samuel 18, verse 3 and 4. 1 Samuel 18, verse 3 and 4. Jonathan gives a gift to David, and it cements their friendship. It takes their friendship to a whole nother level. Why? Because it expressed their love that was in their heart for one another. They became really, really good friends. So that's what it's saying. When somebody gives you something out of love, out of an affection, it means so much more to you when that happens. Verse number 10, reproof entereth more into a wise than 100 stripes into a fool. This one is very easy. The fool does not respond well to correction. All right, if you try to correct somebody who's constantly living a foolish life, they're probably not going to want it, right? But the wise man, they're going to take that. So a wise man, a reproof entereth more into a wise man than 100 stripes into his fool. In other words, you can literally put 100 stripes on a fool, beat him till you're tired, and he'd be like, still going out doing the same thing. How many of you ever got whippings growing up? All right, I talked about my whippings all through my life. I got whippings because I was not a good child, and I deserved those whippings. But I found out the other day in the video doing it with my Nana, I found out that my dad got whippings too. And I didn't think he did, but yes, he did. Matter of fact, the last whipping my dad got was at the age of 16. But my dad used to whip me, and you know what I would do after that whipping? Do you think I learned my lesson? You think I would have, but I didn't. I just went right back to doing what silly old Scott was doing. So those 100 stripes that I got, man, it was not very good. Reproof entering into a wise man is better than 100 stripes on a foolish man. Verse 11 through 13, we're going to kind of look at those together. An evil man seeketh only rebellion. Therefore a cruel messenger shall be sent against him, lest a bear robbed of her whelps meet a man, rather than a fool in his folly. Whosoever rewardeth evil for good, evil shall not depart from his house. I like what H.A. Ironside says about these verses. Nothing irritates a proud, insubordinate man more than to be held in restraint by lawful authority. Can you see that in our society? No one wants to be held down by lawful authority. I don't want to go the speed limit, right? For all you that have a lead foot, I don't want to go the speed limit. I don't want to be bound in the laws of authority. An evil man seeketh only rebellion, all right? An evil man seeks how he can skirt away from the law, right? How can I go fast and not get pulled over? And our mentality is this: 5 to 10 miles over, right? That's our mentality. We can get around getting pulled over, because a policeman surely would not pull us over for 5 miles an hour, right? That's our mindset. So are we seeking to bend the laws, or are we seeking to live within the laws of authority? An evil man seeketh only rebellion. He goes on to say, he breathes the air of treason and rebellion, therefore he must be dealt with in severity. To contend with him is like battling an enraged beast that has been robbed of its offspring. How many of you would want to go take a cub from a mama bear? Not in this life. No, sir. Because what that mama bear is going to do is tear you to pieces, right? So an evil man is looking for rebellion. Cruel messenger is going to be sent against him. Let a bear robbed of her whelps meet a man, rather than a fool in his folly. It'd be better for you to meet a bear without her cubs and trying to steal one of her cubs than it would be a foolish man who's living in folly. That makes a lot of sense to me. Verse 13, pretty simple. Whoso rewardeth evil for good, evil shall not depart from his house. If you say yea to evil, then evil shall not depart from your house. There's going to be evil in there. Verse 14, love the imagery that Solomon has here, because it really makes sense. The beginning of strife is as when one letteth out water, therefore leave off contention before it be meddled with. When you pour out water on just a flat surface, or just a surface in general, it's hard to determine where that water's going to go, right? Water has a property where it seeks the easiest route, the path of least resistance. And it's going to go. So when I pour water out, let's say I poured water on this floor, I would not know what direction that water's going to take, and even how big the puddle's going to be. So one that has strife, and beginning of strife, and has hatred, and cannot restrain their tongue, is like water that cannot be restrained. Now, arguments. How many of you like to argue? I'm sure there's some of you. Thank you for your honesty there. He's a child. He probably does love to argue. Listen, arguments. If you lose control over arguments, it's like pouring water out and you don't know where that water is going to be. So you begin to get in a strife. Let's say you and the spouse begin to get in a strife, or you and a coworker begin to get in a strife. You have no idea where that argument's going to end up, right? You could be saying something that you regret. You could be doing something that you regret. So I love the imagery here. The beginning of strife, it's like when one pours out water and doesn't know where that water is going to go. That's what's going to happen. And there, he says this, because it's unsettling and there's uncertainty in it, leave it alone. It's best just to walk away quietly than to stir up something you don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you have ever said something you regret in an argument? I think we all were like, yeah, double hands up here. Can't take it back, right? How many of us have done something we did not like during an argument? Right? You know, that poor sheetrock just got all of your fierceness. So arguments, man, they got a way of making things not better, but worse. It's better to leave it alone because you have no idea the damage it will bring. It's like water being poured out. Just leave it alone. Verse 15, he that justifieth the wicked and he that condemneth the just, even they both are an abomination to the Lord. Listen, there's only one judge, and that's God. So it's not my job to judge or condemn those who do evil. And it's not the evil's job to condemn those who are doing good. It's Christ's job to condemn or to judge anybody, right? Verse 16, wherefore is there a price in the hand of a fool to get wisdom, seeing he hath no heart to it? A wise man, a foolish man is not willing to pay for wisdom because he doesn't have a heart for it. All right? You're not going to teach a foolish man things because his heart's not inclined to it. There is not a price in the hand of a fool to get wisdom. They don't want wisdom, so therefore they're not going to pay for wisdom. Verse 17, you've probably quoted this verse many times. A friend loveth at all times. Brother is born for adversity, right? A true friend will love at all times, even when times get tough. That friend's going to be there, right? You can call that friend, you say, hey, I messed up, and they're going to be like, it's okay. It's all right. So a friend's going to be there no matter what. There's nothing friends should not be able to overcome. Brothers, man, will show who they are in times of adversity, right? I could pick on my brother. My other brothers could pick on my brothers. My other brothers could pick on me, right? But don't you dare pick on my brother. If I'm outside and my brother was getting picked on, guess who's going to stand up for my brother? I'm going to stand up for my brother. A brother's born for adversity, times of adversity. A brother's going to be there. Verse 18, a man void of understanding striketh hands and becometh surety in the presence of his friend. Wisdom keeps you from making foolish partnerships. That striking of the hands is like somebody shaking hands and agreeing to something that is not a good deal. And then he says, wisdom also keeps us from becoming surety or taking on someone else's debt that is not ours. Verse 19, he loveth transgression that loveth strife. In other words, you love sin when you have strife, and you love to strife, and you love anger. And he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction. This is an interesting verse, especially the last part of it. So the person who loves to sin loves to fight. Right? This is in their nature. Let's fight. That same person that thinks he is good and thinks that he's better than everybody is going to exalt his gate. Now, what does that mean? I'm glad you asked. In the Bible, when you see the reference to the gate, and they sat at the gate, it's speaking of leaders within that city or that community. So it's almost saying he is making himself of prominence. He's exalting himself to a position that he has no business being in. And so the person loves to sin, loves to fight. They'll also exalt themselves to a position of authority. Verse number 20. He that hath a froward heart findeth no good. In other words, he that is perverse in his heart, and we see that in our society, finds nothing good. And he that hath a perverse tongue falleth into mischief. It is amazing how much trouble we can get in just with our tongue. Speaking things we shouldn't be speaking. Verse 21. He that begetteth a fool doeth it to a sorrow, and the father of a fool hath no joy. This is speaking to young people here. Children, understand that you are a reflection of your mom and dad. And you, while you live your life, are to resemble how your mom and dad raised you or whoever raised you. Listen, understand, teenagers, when you go do what your friends want to do and you know it's against your parents' wishes, you are bringing them sorrow. How many parents can agree with that? When a child steps out from, well, my child has gone and done this, it breaks the parent's heart. It's sorrowful. It brings that parent down. And so that's what he's meaning. He that begetteth, he that bringeth a son or a fool, doeth it to a sorrow. And the father of a fool has no joy. In other words, if you are acting like a fool and you're a child, you're bringing your father and your mother no joy whatsoever. That's a hard verse right there, especially for young people. I think that verse needs to be on display in every public school and even Christian school around this area. Be careful how you live, right? Be careful how you live. Verse 22, how many of you like to laugh? All right, got several of you like to laugh. Well, hey, I'm going to give you some good medicine tonight, right? Go home and laugh. Now, if your wife doesn't like to be tickled and she'll punch you when you tickle her, then don't do that, even if it makes you laugh, because that's not going to be good for you. But he says, a merry heart doeth what? Oh, it's good, right? It's a good thing when we can laugh. All right, so it does good like a medicine. But what's the opposite? A broken spirit drieth the bones. I'm going to tell you right now, the family night of hilarity, this is going to make you laugh. All right? I was in stitches laughing. And sometimes we just need to come together as God's people and share a laugh together. Chuckle. I would love to see some of you laughing so hard that you fall out of your chair because you're laughing so hard. Your sides start to hurt because you laugh so hard, right? That's a good laugh. You just added all kinds of energy to your life. June 9th. Man, come out here and laugh with us. See some wonderful things and just have a good laugh. I'm sure that I will even get picked on during that thing. You will probably get picked on during that thing. But that's okay. We're going to laugh. It is good to laugh. Let me ask you this. You answer this in your little mind there. When is the last time you had a good laugh? Well, I had a good cry last night. The broken spirit drieth the bones. You know what you need to do? You need to get some moisture in the bones because nobody likes that dry food. Laugh a little. It's okay to laugh. Does everybody understand that? It's okay to smile. You know, smiling does good things too. It brightens somebody else's day. And I think some of us just need to learn how to get those muscles going back up in our face again. Taking your face and just pushing it up if you got to. Just to say, I'm smiling today. I mean, it'd make the world of a difference. You'd walk into your house and your husband or wife would be like, what's wrong with you? I'm smiling. Why? You never do that, right? Don't be like that. Hey, I'm a firm believer that a married couple, even couples who are looking to get married should laugh together. Amen? They should have fun together. Even if it's my wife laughing at something silly I did. Like, Even every time that video comes out of me walking out my back door with a cooler of meat and almost falling out of the door, I did not. I secured the meat in my hand and I did not fall. I get laughed at. But I put it on Facebook because I knew people would laugh at me. It's the greatest thing in the world. You know, yes, I about ate cement right there. But it just makes us laugh. If you want a good laugh tonight, go on to my page, my Facebook page, and find that video of me falling out the door. It will change your life. You will laugh tonight, I promise. At my expense, go ahead. It's free for you. Right, Brother Michael? It's funny, right? I know Miss Jennifer loves it too. She laughs at it a lot. So laughter's good. A merry heart doth good like a medicine. So you know what we need to do more of? We need to smile more. Okay? So next time you come into church, why don't we try to put on a smile? Because it's good for us. All right? It's good for us. Verse 23, I'll move on now. You know you need to be smiling. A wicked man taketh a gift out of the bosom to pervert the ways of judgment. So this is someone who's taking bribes under the table. And when favor and desired outcomes depend upon bribed money and not fairness and righteousness, then justice is perverted. So a man that takes a gift or a bribe under the table is really perverting the ways of judgment. Verse 24, wisdom is before that him that hath understanding, but the eyes of the fool are in the ends of the earth. This is a solid verse right here. Here's what wisdom does. Don't miss this. Wisdom acts on what wisdom sees, right? So wisdom acts on what's in front of you. I have a tendency, and my wife has to take out the fishing pole and rein me back in. I have a tendency to dream big. When I was taking personality trait tests, that is one of mine. I dream big. And some days I just don't know how to get there. And so my wife has to come and she has to break it down into small, manageable sections in my life. And she has to say, just focus on this. Look at what's in front of you. Don't try to go 2 years from now, right? Let's just focus on the month of May. Okay, we can do that. We can focus on the month of May. But wisdom is looking right in front. And wisdom is responding to the things that it can clearly see. But a foolish person is looking to the ends of the earth. They're looking to and fro. Their eyes are everywhere. They have no focus. They are scattered. Do you know anybody like that? They're just like, they're everywhere. It's like, rein it in and let's focus on right here. Okay? Verse 25. A foolish son is a grief to his father and bitterness to her that bear him. Once again, we see the importance of living a godly life so that your father and your mother are not sorrowed by your life. Verse 26, also to punish the just is not good, nor to strike princes for equity. Righteousness should not be punished. God does the opposite. God punishes unrighteousness. And when a society punishes the righteous for being righteous or the leaders for leading righteously, something is wrong. And I think that's where we got into our country. That where we would rather have leaders who are leading foolishly, who are not leading wisely, who are doing things that they shouldn't do, and they punish the godly. Let a politician stand up and say, I am standing firm on this because of my biblical background. I'm standing firm. What happens to them? They get ridiculed. They get put down. Same thing in society. Young people getting told, hey, you can't do this. You can't stand up for God. You can't speak for God. You can't do all these things for God. And so righteousness is being punished in our society. Would y'all agree with that? And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So verse 27, he that hath knowledge spareth his words. You know what this means? Sometimes you just know when to hush and you know when to speak. Knowledge says, don't say what's in your brain, right? Just stay quiet. How many have ever failed that test? Like something comes to your brain, you're like, yes, oops, right? That's a terrible place to be. It's a bad place to be. But he says, he that hath knowledge spares his words. And a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. An excellent spirit. So sometimes it's revealed in your life if you're wise or foolish, and by what you say or by what you do not say. If you choose to remain silent, you could be showing the world that I'm staying wise. That person will also have a calm spirit about them. They won't get all worked up on things when things shouldn't be worked up on. In verse 28, a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise. Even a fool, when he doesn't speak his mind, is counted wise. And he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. Once again, listen, sometimes it's better to just close the mouth, walk away, and not get in trouble. Because what's going to happen? If I open my mouth, it could be like the letting out of the beginning of strife, letting out of the water. I don't know where it's going to go. And so there's uncertainty in foolishness. Man, there's been some verses in here that have just been like really, really, really good verses. And I hope that at least one of them has spoke to your heart and challenged you tonight in how you can live a better life for Jesus Christ. We're going to have a short time of invitation. Miss Martha's going to play through a verse of hymn, and then if nobody responds in an invitation, then we'll close it down. But listen, maybe there's something you need to pray about tonight. It may not even pertain to the message, but feel free to pray. Feel free to go and talk to the Lord, and I know that He will answer you. Let's pray. To Heavenly Father, thank you for this day you've given us. Lord, I pray that you would just bless this time of invitation. Lord, I pray that we would be honest and open with you this evening.